it's really wonderful that it's made now one version that you kind of can have a reduced orchestra, smaller orchestra, and keep the choir in the same way and for the soloists. And I think it will give access to this music for many more people. And it's done in a very beautiful way, I have to say.
We really wanted to do this great piece in our degree. But of course it comes with some challenges with the two orchestras. And I just started asking musicians who I could get a contact of. But at some point we kind of had one orchestra together, but I had pretty much asked everybody I could get hold of. So it was clear that we couldn't fill two orchestras, but we also didn't want to sacrifice the Baroque instruments. So we was looking for a solution, and we found this version of Carus, which also helped our scarce budget, of course. And we decided to do it.
I think what's really nice about this reduced version is that it still captures the essence of the piece. And in some ways, especially with our performance of one to a part, I think it allows the individuality of the player to come out a lot more. And I think you can see personalities when people perform it.
I really enjoy it as we're able to play it with lesser people. And it feels a bit different, but as it is my favorite piece, I still love it, and it still has the same qualities.
Yes, I noticed that. Especially there's this duetto aria with choir, number 27A, So ist mein Jesus nun gefangen, where the second choir intervenes the capturing of Jesus. And in the original version, choir 2 is joined by the full second orchestra, but in this version it's only the winds, the reed winds actually, so oboes and bassoon. And this makes the contrast of sounds even stronger, and I personally like that. And there are also other movements, for example 4B, Ja nicht auf das Fest, where the orchestra is divided in first instruments and second instruments, so first oboe, first flute, and so on. I agree that if they play a more equal role, that it's good to have the orchestra split in two equal parts. Sometimes this produces some difficulties with balance, because, for example, the flute is alone where it was before with a violin, but I think all of these things are manageable.
Originally, when I was looking through the score, I had this imagination of the oboe, and I thought it would be quite interesting. But luckily enough for us, we happened to have a singer who could play the violin. So for us, the solution was to slot him in and move the first violin to solo. But I think that if you were to perform it with the oboe as a soloist, it wouldn't necessarily take away from the well-known aria. I think it would just perhaps bring a different color that could be interesting and worthy of performance. There could be, I think, a few different reasons. Immediately what jumps to my mind is that if I were a professor at some point in my life, it would be a great experience for my students to be able to perform this piece in a sort of smaller setting. As well, I think it could be interesting for Baroque ensembles that are coming up in the scene that aren't necessarily the top tier, but are sort of growing, and it allows them to get through this work without having a super big budget for two orchestras.
The St. Matthew Passion, it's a piece that demands a lot of strong forces, right? You have a double orchestra, double choir, big solos, and I'm so happy it's now made a small a version for just single orchestra, which make it much easier to present this wonderful music with smaller forces. And in this version we're making here, it's just solistic in the choir, right? And the solos also come from the choir, and the single musicians as well. And it makes it very intimate, very fragile in a beautiful way. And I think that this version is really made. It's very good, I think.